Pet first aid involves stabilizing a pet when an emergency situation arises before you bring them to the veterinarian. So it's not a replacement for the veterinarian. It's a get the pet stabilized, then get them in as quickly as you can. So that could be for your pet's bleeding. If your pet's bleeding, you got to stop the bleeding or at least slow it down before you get them to the vet. Or it could be your pet became hyperthermic, was trapped inside a car, and his temperature's up, so maybe you got to cool them down a little bit with some water before you get them in, just to start some basic support before he gets in. So I think there are three most important things that you need to consider when you administer emergency treatment or CPR. Is that a lot of pets are in pain when you're doing this, and one of the biggest things people forget is even though it's their pet and they trust their pet, pets in pain will bite. So you have to be very careful when you're trying to help your pet and stabilize them that you don't accidentally get bit. That's probably the biggest thing. Number two is it's important to remember that stabilizing the pet to the best degree you can is what CPR really is. It's not really a replacement for your veterinarian. It's only to get your pet as stable as possible before you can get them into the veterinary clinic. And then the third thing that I think pet owners need to know is they should role play, practice these things before the emergency arises. I think when you're really panicked and your pet's in trouble, you're not going to be thinking as clearly as you will if you've role played it ahead of time and it's just boom, 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 have it and you got it down. One thing pet owners should always keep on hand and be prepared in case of an emergency is a first aid kit. And not only have the first aid kit, but open it up, go through it, make sure they know what's included, and make sure they've thought about the different types of emergencies and that they got everything they need in case of an emergency. Treatment with dogs and cats really is pretty similar to people. There's really not much in the way of differences. The type of emergencies you might see are different between pets and sometimes people, but other than that, it's really the same steps. We call the ABCs of CPR, or just like people, finding an airway, make sure the airway is open, breathing for the pet if necessary. Circulation is the C, and that's just for pumping their chest just like you would a person. So really it's very, very similar. It's almost the same type of setup. So there's a couple sources that are good for teaching people how to administer CPR and what to do in the various types of emergencies. One of the best things is something called veterinarianpartners.com, and it's a website that's set up by veterinarians for pet owners, and it has a whole list of different articles for different emergencies where you can get information depending on the emergency. So that's one very good resource. The other is the Red Cross, teaches you pet first aid. There are courses you can take through the Red Cross that teaches you how to administer first aid to your pet.